Hello all, this is James Johnson, aka Sulfurblade, and I am here to talk about Star Wars and all of the movies that comprise the Star Wars universe. Um, so yeah, I've been straying on this channel into getting into, well, doing TV reviews, and most of my TV reviews have been on the topic of Star Trek, which has led me into Star Wars. I love Star Trek and I love Star Wars. I am a very passionate, longtime fan of Star Wars, and I felt, since I'm clearing the air and getting things off my chest in regards to Star Trek and how I feel about Star Trek, I might as well talk about Star Wars too. In the background, you'll see a slideshow of basically movie posters for all the various Star Wars movies that have come out, and I've put on my personal rating of how I feel that each movie fits into the Star Wars universe and how good they are according to on a 10-point scale. With anything being below 5 being pretty bad, and well, anything above 8 being really good. So, first off, I think I'm just going to start in order that they appeared in the box office, and I'm going to touch on each of them and how I feel about each of them. And so we're going to start with Star Wars A New Hope, which is the very first one to ever come out in the box office, I believe, 1977? And there was something magical about Star Wars A New Hope. The first 3 movies, they stood head and shoulders above all the rest of the movies. And there's a very important reason for that, and that is the cast. The cast of the original Star Wars trilogy was so incredible, with Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Chewbacca, C-3PO, R2-D2, Darth Vader, Obi-Wan Kenobi. I mean, these characters were so easy to love. And you really felt a connection because the characters were so well developed. And that is something that the other Star Wars movies have pretty much lacked, is character development. Most Star Wars movies really have the rest of the Star Wars movies, I should say, have relatively weak characters that just don't possess the type of charisma and ability just to draw in the audience as the original cast did. I don't know if that has to do with writing or the reliance on special effects that the later movies seem to rely so much on, or the prevalence of the later movies being so much more action oriented, and we gotta get in these speeder races and all of this crazy special effects stuff that I think detracts from what made the first trilogy just so good, and that was the interaction between the characters. So Star Wars A New Hope is almost a perfect movie in my opinion. I give it a 9.3 out of 10. And I don't know much else to say. It just started off the whole works. Empire Strikes Back, great movie, but it always felt kind of like I don't know, a felt like a transitional movie between the Return of the Jedi and Star Wars, and of course it was. You know, it obviously did fill the transition gap between the two, but I think that's where The Empire Strikes Back is at its weakest, is that it was the transition. It kind of didn't do anything except set up the Return of the Jedi and conclude Star Wars. So, in and of itself, it wasn't a very conducive movie in its own rights, but you still had such a superb cast with Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford and everybody that took place. And even though it suffered from kind of being the transitional movie, it's still so far better than all of the other Star Wars movies because of the cast. Um, I would gladly watch Empire Strikes Back before any other Star Wars movie, with the exception of Star Wars and The Return of the Jedi. I'm going to put Empire Strikes Back into the DVD slot every single time before Revenge of the Sith or Attack of the Clones or Phantom Menace, and I most certainly am going to put it in the DVD slot before ever wasting my time watching Last Jedi again. But anyway, I give Empire Strikes Back an 8.7. Maybe that's a little high. Maybe it could come down to as far as an 8.4, but still, it's part of that magical trilogy. So I can't go any lower than 8. But I think 8.4 to 8.7 is a realistic place to put it. Return of the Jedi. It's the pinnacle. It's the pinnacle of Star Wars. It's Luke fighting Vader. It is the most pinnacle thing to ever happen in Star Wars. The two most important characters of the whole works, Anakin Skywalker, aka Darth Vader, and Luke Skywalker, coming to blows and solving the entire problem, the end of the Sith, if you will. Incredible, absolutely incredible movie. I can't say enough good about Return of the Jedi. It is the pinnacle of Star Wars at 9.7 out of 10. Nearly perfect. Few problems in the end with Vader, and those are more of a political thing. I don't think George Lucas did himself any favors with how he treated the actor who actually played Darth Vader, and yeah. So I don't know anyone who knows any about the history, but Darth Vader was played by basically 3 different people. You had, in the Return of the Jedi, you had the voice of Darth Vader, which is understandable. I mean, the voice of Darth Vader, Darth Vader wouldn't be the same without that voice, right? But then the face of Darth Vader, who was seen, was actually different than who was the person who actually was in the costume the whole time. And I felt that, well, there's some political history going on in Star Wars behind the scenes as to why that happened. But I would have liked that the actual actor would have been seen. I don't necessarily think that we needed to bring in a third face. And so just because of that politics behind it, I think it detracted from the movie being the perfect movie. If there ever was a perfect movie, it was the Empire or Return of the Jedi. Then there's Phantom Menace. I was so excited for Phantom Menace. I had just gotten back to the U.S. from being stationed overseas. I mean, it was such lucky timing that I was back in the U.S. and able to see the Phantom Menace live in the movie theaters. And I can remember that this was kind of when reserving a ticket online was like a new thing, and I purchased my ticket online, and actually got to walk past all the crazy people who were standing in a line for like 2 or 3 days because I bought my ticket online and they hadn't bought their ticket yet. And it just it felt almost wrong, like I was I don't know. I felt bad for all those people that I just got showed in front of, walked right in front of all of them because I had my ticket that I had purchased online. And at the same time, it kind of made me feel really good, when you get to cut in front of a giant line that's freaking 3 days long. It makes you feel pretty good too. But I digress. The Phantom Menace was oh, I really liked the character that Liam Neeson played. I thought that Master Qui-Gon was a very strong character. Um, Obi-Wan was a little meh, but I really liked Qui-Gon. And I liked the interaction between Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, and I liked the boy Anakin Skywalker, and the whole inclusion of a C-3PO backstory. That was nice, but Phantom Menace just didn't have as strong as of a cast. Liam Neeson was probably the person who carried the screen the most, who seemed to have the most screen presence, but he just wasn't big enough to fulfill the role of Star Wars. And Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher, and everything that you know I don't think anyone could have actually filled the shoes I was looking for. But of the following trilogy, the next three movies afterwards, I thought Liam Neeson probably was the best character with Master Qui-Gon. I really liked that character, and for that reason, because of him, I give Phantom Menace as high as a 6.8 out of 10. The Phantom Menace relied a lot on special effects, CGI, the whole race thing, and it really kind of detracted from what I felt Star Wars was, which was, from watching the original trilogy, I saw movies that revolved around basically character development, character interaction, and talking, and not really having to go action, 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 action every scene like the Phantom Menace started to prep us for. It wasn't as action-y as the next two movies that followed, and that leads us into Attack of the Clones. Um, Attack of the Clones, again, where my rating scale is going down, 6.1 out of 10. No Liam Neeson to carry the screen. Now we have a new Anakin who's kind of a lot. He's a lot like Obi-Wan Kenobi, in that both of them just weren't really good. The original Obi-Wan was amazing, but the secondary Obi-Wan, the young Obi-Wan, was mediocre, and then the young adult Anakin that we saw was easy to start to dislike because, well, he wasn't very likable. And I think that was one of the big problems with Attack of the Clones. It's just that you couldn't get into Anakin's character very much because he didn't have a very good screen presence, and they didn't do a very good job of setting him up. And then you had the whole romance thing going on, and you knew it was going to end the way it was going to end up ending in the Revenge of the Sith, and it just kind of detracted from everything. Wasn't a lot in Attack of the Clones to really say, wow, amazing movie. It's Star Wars going downhill is what it was for me. And then there's Revenge of the Sith. The only thing that I remember about Revenge of the Sith that I thought was really cool was Yoda. Yoda was the highlight of that movie. The rest of it was just really bad. So I think, what was it? I gave Attack of the Clones a 6.1. Revenge of the Sith is like a 5.6. And so we're continuing this downward scale because the Revenge of the Sith was even more action, 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 action. The whole time action. Plus, we also had that horrible Jar Jar Binks trying to save the day and the stupid things that he did in the fight scenes with his dumb luck, and it really took away from what Star Wars was. In the original trilogy, it was a very dramatic, realistic sci-fi show with great character interaction that was, almost the perfect movies, and now we're starting to dumb it down with cheesy Jar Jar Binks characters, and nothing but action, action, and CGI. Yeah, so the those three movies that came after the original trilogy didn't do Star Wars a lot of favors, in my opinion. Then we had The Force Awakens when Disney got their hands on things, and I was very, very, very worried about what direction Disney might take things. Well, the first thing I hated was the fact that the expanded universe got crushed. That was a horrible move for Star Wars. It's just too much good stuff that was out there in the expanded universe to just dump all over it and treat it the way that they did. But The Force Awakens, I actually give that fairly high marks, 7.1 out of 10. And the reason I give it as high of marks as I do, which this is the first Disney movie, and it's better than the last three movies that George Lucas did, in my opinion, because of the fact that it was basically a reboot of the original Star Wars. You could tell that J.J. Abrams basically copied Star Wars: A New Hope with less development of character, a weaker cast, but he did have the old cast there to try to bring in the new cast, kind of like how Spock brought in the new Spock in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, except Carrie Fisher and Han Solo really, they carried the screen in Star Wars: Force Awakens. It was my nostalgia for those characters that I loved more than anything, and even after the end of the movie, I was still quite shaky about what I thought about the new characters, Rey and the other guy. They didn't leave a resounding impression on me, but the movie did pay a lot of homage to Star Wars, and just from that nostalgia factor, I rank The Force Awakens as high as the 7.1 because it felt like J.J. Abrams was really playing it safe by basically copying everything Star Wars: A New Hope did. And to me, it felt okay. I didn't mind it. It was nostalgic, and while it was a copy, I didn't hate him for it. Um, I felt it was actually a far better movie than The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. So I left the movie theater kind of with a new hope, if you will, uh, that Star Wars: A Force Awakens, having copied A New Hope so much, might be setting up the new Disney Star Wars universe to go in a good direction. And then Rogue One happened. Rogue One was a solidly average movie. Um, I love the fact that it expanded on the original time, if you will, of the original cast. Um, I really liked Rogue One. I didn't think Rogue One was as horrible of a movie as like Phantom of the Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. I thought it was much stronger, and it was nice to see the Rogue One concept of a Star Wars movie. I thought it was creative. Was it a Star Wars New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi caliber? No. But was it watchable and likable? Yes. So for me, I left the movie theater after seeing Rogue One feeling like, my money wasn't a waste, and it was a fairly average movie, which was a good thing since Phantom of the Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith were below average movies, in my opinion. And so I really felt like Rogue One was a positive direction, and it gave me more hope that maybe Disney could do justice to Star Wars. And then, and then, and then The Last Jedi happened. And well, The Last Jedi is a travesty. If there was any movie that I could just make disappear from existence, it's The Last Jedi. So they needed another movie. They rushed the characters. Rey was all of a sudden a Jedi, and she wasn't. I mean, Rey holds a lightsaber and swings it around, and the whole scene with her treating a lightsaber as if it was some sort of dagger, holding it backwards, was just a joke, a farce, so silly. And then the whole fight scene with the Imperial Guards, she would have gotten killed if that was actually her. The Imperial Guard of the Emperor were some of the most trained warriors in existence, and here is Rey, this not even a Jedi yet, has force abilities, but can magically go in and all of a sudden fight and win against the Imperial Guard of the Emperor. And then that's not even start to talk about Snoke and where the frick he came from. Just magical pulling some Sith out of the ether because, the Emperor and Vader were dead. But hey, a Sith just magically appears from out of nowhere, and as we know, there can only ever be two, a master and apprentice, and the master and the apprentice were dead thanks to Luke Skywalker, so where the flip did Snoke come from? But it didn't matter because Rey, being the superwoman who all of a sudden, with one movie since her introduction in The Last Jedi, can somehow magically become a Jedi Master and strike down a Sith Lord because she's Rey, Superwoman. Yeah, no. Sorry. Last Hope is is no Return of the Jedi. The Last Hope is what happens when you try to make a Return of the Jedi without having an Empire Strikes Back. I don't like Rey. I liked her in the first movie because I didn't know much about her. But the movie where I was supposed to learn about her, The Last Jedi, where I'm supposed to see her train and become a Jedi, like Luke Skywalker trained to become a Jedi, I didn't see that. I just saw the magical creation of a Jedi Master before my eyes. It was garbage. Kylo Ren, garbage. There was nothing scary about him in any way, shape, or form. So the bad guys were horribly set up to not be scary. They were no Darth Vader. They weren't even close to being a Darth Vader. They weren't even a Darth Maul. Darth Maul was scarier than Snoke and Kylo Ren. Yeah. The Last Jedi rushed the timeline as far as I'm concerned. Too much stuff happened that shouldn't have happened yet. Snoke shouldn't have died yet. Kylo Ren shouldn't have ended up where he is now yet. Luke shouldn't be dead. Rey, I should actually be liking her at the end of the movie because she actually went through the process of becoming a Jedi and making a transformation. There should have been character creation. There was no character creation. We just had a bunch of pew 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 and action, and it was a shame. It was, yeah. I can't say enough bad things about Star Wars: The Last Jedi. It just, I don't know as if they could have made a movie worse. That's how bad it was. Yeah. So, and that leads me into the last movie in the Star Wars universe that I think I'm probably marking down lower than I should because I'm still recovering from The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi left me so sour that watching Solo, well, maybe Solo's better than the 4.9 out of 10 I'm giving it right now, but I'm not sure because, wow. Corellia, which was indeed a shipyard, that's one of the only things they got right about it, was one of the richest planets in the Empire where some of the most numerous loyal officers of the Empire came from. Corellia is one of the core worlds of the Empire. It's one of the most important worlds of the Empire, and they made it out to be some sort of slum. And then Solo, Han Solo, who doesn't even have a family, but yeah, he didn't get kicked out of the academy. He chose to save Chewie and chose to turn against the Empire. But he was a very promising up-and-coming Imperial officer who left on his own accord to save Chewbacca. There's just so much wrong in the Solo movie. With the start of it, why did we have to have a female character there? Why did we have to start off with some sort of female love interest that made Solo look like another stupid white male that couldn't think on his own and needed a white female to think for him. Han Solo was far smarter than the character we saw in this movie. Not to mention Han Solo, Harrison Ford's portrayal of Han Solo was an alpha male. As alpha of a male as you could ever see on the big screen. Han Solo bursted with confidence. Han Solo was one of the most confident male characters to ever be seen on the big screen. Han Solo exuded confidence. He exuded male masculinity. He exuded alpha male. And the Solo that we see in Solo is a beta male. He does everything for his girl. If she tells him to jump, he says how high. His happiness is derived by making her happy. This is not an alpha male that is being portrayed in Solo. The portrayal of Solo was very bad. It's one of the reasons I mark it down so far. The Lando Calrissian portrayal was wishy-washy. I think it's interesting that Lando was in love with his robot, and that just came off as some strange way of trying to interject politics into a movie. It's like, hey, let's. I don't know. It just didn't. It didn't do. It was useless. It wasn't needed in the movie at all. It's like Gillette coming out and trying to tell men what they need to do. It was just dumb. It was stupidity. Now, the only character in Solo that I really liked, that I really felt like there was any type of real character progression made, and I felt closer to, like the character actually was respectably built up and respectably done, was Chewbacca. But I guess, a Wookiee, which is an alien, there's no reason to denigrate a Wookiee. We don't need to make a Wookiee look bad, even though we know Chewbacca is a male Wookiee. It's fine. Male Wookiees can still be awesome, smart, and, ass kickers and brave and all of that. I mean, Chewbacca felt like Chewbacca. Chewbacca was pretty good in Solo. But Solo was a schmuck. He wasn't the Han Solo who chased down an entire platoon of stormtroopers with Chewbacca in a hallway, and all the stormtroopers ran away because, oh my god, this crazy guy is charging us. He must be really badass, right? And Leia makes the comment about how brave he is. We gotta give him that. He's brave. Well, we didn't see his bravery in this movie. What we saw in this movie was his dumb luck. We saw lots of dumb luck. We didn't see him getting out of situations because he's smart. We saw him getting out of situations because he was lucky. And so, yeah, Solo, I give it as high of marks as I do because I thought they did a pretty good job on Chewbacca. But the rest of the show was pretty abysmal. And that's where we are in the Star Wars universe. So, if just to clarify here, um, we had the original trilogy that was like perfection of Star Wars, and maybe we never should have made any movies after the original trilogy to to stain the Star Wars universe. Maybe we should have just let people write books and read the books and played video games and such. But yeah, the Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, pretty much all were, they brought the franchise down. Then Lucas, for whatever craziness, I guess he kind of understood that he kind of put a knife in the back of his franchise and decided to cash out and sell to Disney. But then, 4 billion. Who blames him, right? Um, and then Force Awakens comes out with J.J. Abrams giving a solidly average reboot of Star Wars: A New Hope, which I thought was adequate, a good way to transition into the Disney years. Then Rogue One comes along and gives you a little more hope. It's a step in the right direction. It's an improvement over The Force Awakens. It's still not Star Wars Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi yet, but it's at least going in the right direction. It's at least a movie that's above average. And then we get The Last Jedi, which is a movie worse than anything George Lucas ever did to tarnish the Star Wars name. The Last Jedi is the worst movie of the lot. And then Solo comes out, which, again, is really bad, and worse than anything that George Lucas ever did. So the last two movies from Disney are worse than what Lucas did to Star Wars. They're worse than Lucas's special effect driven dribble of the last three, the prequel. And so any any hope that we might have had from A Force Awakens and any hope we might have had from Rogue One that Disney would be the savior of Star Wars, it's gone. It vanished. It vanished in the blink of an eye when Last Jedi was on the big screen. I mean, wow. Last Jedi was just atrocious. And that is my summary of where we are in Star Wars. And that's not talking about any of the animated series, as I don't really care much about the animated series. Then I don't watch them. I don't care about them. That's actually not me talking about any of the video games either. But let's face it, right now, EA sucks. Anyone who plays video games knows that EA is just out to get your money, and they make crap games filled with loot boxes, and they're part of the SJW needless politics in a video game culture. But then again, it really seems like Disney might be part of that crowd too, especially the person that is currently in charge of Lucas Films. I forget what her name is. Kathleen Kennedy, I think. Is that her name? Um, she seems like she's right a part of that crowd and is probably the reason we see so much of this dribble in Star Wars. Like all the stuff that they did to make Han Solo look like a beta male, a stupid beta male, but yet it was okay to let Chewie be a cool masculine character because he's an alien and he's hairy. And so, we don't have to bring him down. We just have to bring down the white male character. Yeah. So anyway, that's where Star Wars is. Do I have a lot of hope going forward? No. It's been flushed. Uh, could Star Wars make a resurrection? Maybe. Doubtful. Uh, but yeah, Star Wars, Doctor Who, Star Trek, it's all going to crap. It's sad. But hey, we got the Orville, so woohoo! At least there's something to watch. Anyway, that's been my discussion of Star Wars. Hopefully you guys appreciate this video. If so, leave a like, subscribe, all that jazz, and until next time, all peace.